my goodness, it is so unbelievably amazing to be here tonight. How are you guys all doing? How are you enjoying this weather? Is it hot? Is it too hot? Or are you just like Goldilocks, where it's like, this one's just right? I know I personally love the heat, so I am all about this, despite living in Minnesota. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mickey Spear. I am a musician, author, proud cat mama of two cats who just turned 5 years old. So, give them a happy birthday in the comments. Happy birthday, Ace and Duke. I love you so much. And I am host of tonight's show, The Healing Half. When I was 13, my mom died of cancer, and I stayed in that shock, denial, and I'm fine phase for about 10 years. So I wanted to create a show that addressed how we can address our own griefs from both a grief and other aspects perspective, as well as how we can learn how to help others better. So we have an absolutely amazing show planned for you tonight with some great guests. But before that, I want to absolutely thank our amazing sponsor. So, every episode, just so you guys know, it does take a lot to keep the lights on. And tonight, we are sponsored by Scott Steven, who is a realtor. And I'm going to pull up his picture here in just 1 second. But he's a realtor in the Minnesota area that covers both Wisconsin and Minnesota. And you guys, I talked to him this morning, and he's an absolute angel. So please, if you are in the market for a new realtor, please keep Scott in mind, because we are just so grateful for people who believe in the show and who believe in helping others. He's a great guy and he can travel. So Minnesota, Wisconsin, now for those of you guys who don't know, is an awesome time to be a home buyer. So if you have any questions or need help, please keep Scott in mind, and I'm going to send you his contact info in the chat. Hopefully that went through, and I will also send that to you in our follow-up email. So if you haven't signed up for my fans list yet, just head to my website, download your free copy of My Heart Still Remembers, and after each episode, I send out an email that has all the notes and resources from the show, and you can get in touch with Scott from there too. So for those of you who are brand new, maybe you don't know me super well yet, but I'm really excited to get to know you better. I am a musician, and I love to talk music, to talk shop, and I firmly believe in the power of music. So every single episode, I want to feature a musician from all over the country that is going to share their gift with us. And tonight we have someone who I am so honored to call a friend. Her name is Heather Ray, and I'm putting her contact info in the chat right now. And she is going to share her amazing song with us called Victory. So Heather and I have co-written together. We met at Songwriting Group. So Heather, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. First of all, happy birthday to Ace and Duke. That is adorable. And thank you so much, Mickey, for having me on your podcast. This is an amazing podcast, and I'm honored to be on it. So the song I'm going to sing for you today. So about a year ago, I'm a freelancer, and I had two really big projects fall through within about 3 days of each other. Which was going to equate about 6 months of my salary. So that was kind of a blow that I was not expecting. And I really felt like life had just completely kicked me down. And I know that today Mickey's going to talk about owning your story. So I am owning that moment. It was not a very fun moment. But I just kind of got this vision of life physically kicking me down to the ground. And then I had this little question in the back of my mind that says, so what do you do now? Do you give up or do you get up? And I thought that was a good question. And so I went home. I felt bad for myself for a bit, and then I ended up writing the song. So it's called Victory. I hate the days that beat you down, makes me forget about my ground. I felt a crack inside my chest, but my spirit's not quite dead yet. No. I got kicked down to the ground today, and I felt it run all through my bones. Dirt's in my teeth now, but the best in life is worth the fight. So watch me get up on my own. 'cause victory is all I know. It's all I know. And though I'm bruised and look a mess, this is where I shine my best. 'Cause I am strong, though I look weak, and victory just tastes so sweet. I got kicked down to the ground today, and I felt it rattle through my bones. Dirt's in my teeth now, but the best in life is worth the fight. So watch me get up on my own, 'cause victory is all I know. It's all I know. A door slammed in my face is just a challenge I embrace. I'll take the fight, I'll win the gamble, 'cause I'm not afraid of a little battle. Whoa. I got kicked down to the ground today, and I felt it rattle through my bones. Dirt's in my teeth now, but the best in life is worth the fight. So watch me get up on my own, 'cause victory is all I know. It's all I know.
Oh my goodness, Heather, you knocked it out of the park. Thank you so much for sharing your amazing gift. We are so honored and blessed by you, and I really appreciate you sharing your story. Like, we're going to talk exactly about owning those moments before, and I'm so proud of you for pushing through. And like you said, am I going to give up or am I going to get up? Oh my gosh. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for even doing this podcast. I feel like we really need a place to like feel safe and to express ourselves and to just deal with this. And this is such a good topic that I feel like is underspoken about. And so
Oh,
I think what you're doing is amazing. So thank you.
You're such an angel. Thank you. And I really appreciate you being here. You'll be back again. I've got a pretty good feeling. I can talk to whoever books and make sure that happens. Oh my gosh. But thank you so much, Heather. Truly, if you guys are in Nashville, go check her out. She is an absolute rock star. Her link is in the bio, and I'll be sure to put that in my follow-up email as well. So for you guys who are also new to the show, first of all, welcome. I hope you guys liked that song. Let me know if you did in the chat feature. We would love to just give Heather some love so she can go back and watch that. But also, in addition to a music opening, we also like to dedicate each and every episode because we all got here by people building us up to who we are today. And so this is what the part of our show that we call our Dearly Missed dedication. And we have a very special one actually happening today where we have Leo McFarland. I'll let him introduce himself here in a second, but he's actually going to introduce himself, why he likes the show, as well as introduce us to his Dearly Missed dedication today. So Leo, you've got the stage from here.
Hi, I'm Leo McFarland. I'm from the East Metro. And my sister, Colleen, sent me a link to your show originally and said, this is a good show. And right away from the very first
Oops, Leo, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I'm not sure what happened. Do you mind just hitting refresh on your screen super fast, and we'll try it just one more time? For whatever reason, audio cut out there. Heather, I'm not sure if you were still on, if you could still hear him, but if everyone else could still hear him, no worries. We're just going to give him a couple seconds to get back on and go from there.
Okay. It's back.
All right, Leo, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, that was my Marcel Marceau impersonation. The reason I started watching The Healing Half is my sister sent me a link, and it was just awesome. Right from the get-go, the first program, I went to mickyspear.com, and I printed out My Heart Still Remembers, and I walked through the steps with losing John Meany here, my buddy, 10 years ago. The facts are John Meany was born on this day. John, happy birthday. He was the son of Marge and Tom. He had 4 older sisters and 1 younger one. He is the husband to Priya and the father to India and Darshan. And we were classmates at Totino Grace High School. And senior year, late in the years, one of our friends committed suicide with no signs or symptoms. What I didn't know about John, that totally changed him, where he learned all about depression, all about suicide. And later on in his college years, that was very important because he was able to see the signs of the depression and the withdrawing that this person was doing. And he contacted their parents. He got them help, and he saved a life. So props out to you, John. I will forever be thankful. What I miss about John, quantifying the loss as my heart still remembers, got me through, was I miss your laugh. It's almost a giggle. The way you recited the 80s movies lines, and the way you would hold me accountable and really say, our friendship is this important. Why did you do this? Why did you say that? That kind of thing is very rare in a friendship. The way you always put family first was just amazing. No excuses. I can't do this. My family comes first. We got something going. So, John, this is for you. Happy birthday. I miss you. I love you. Here's one for you. Here's one for the horse you rode in on. And last but not least, Moo Dog Patch. No, that's wrong. Moo Dog Face to the Banana Patch, which is Steve Martin.
Thank you so much, Leo. Thank you so much for being here, for your kind words, and for your amazing tribute to your wonderful friend, John. I am so grateful for you sharing that. And thank you for being who you are and for all the help that you've done to make this show what it is. So if you guys are interested at all in doing a Dearly Missed dedication for either someone you lost or buying it as a gift for somebody you know who is grieving, it's, as you can just see, I'm crying, you're crying, we're all crying. It's an amazing way to share our loved ones and to be able to really honor their legacy. So in John's honor, make sure you are holding your friends accountable. I think that's a really powerful statement. And God is amazing. Can we just get an amen to that? Because next week, we are actually having a guest speaker on to talk about the signs of suicide, which is, or sorry, in 2 weeks from now, we are going to be talking about that. So I just think it's so cool that we're kind of talking about that. And that was something that your friend took seriously, because we all need to do a better job at learning the signs. So thank you again for sharing. It means just the absolute world, Leo. So if you are interested in a Dearly Missed dedication, just message me. I would love to make that happen for you guys. Tonight's message. Oh my gosh, you guys, I am so excited. I love having guests on, but I love to be the speaker too. So I've just been pumped about this episode. And what we're going to be talking tonight about is how owning our story matters and how we can actually do it. So to kind of prime the session here, ask yourself this. If you had to tell your story on the spot, somebody walks up to you at a party, you've never really met them before, would you be able to do it? Would you be able to kind of say, okay, I'm going to do the elevator pitch, the short version, or maybe switch it on and say, I can do the long version too? Most of us have not actually taken the time to sit down and really map it out. And the idea of owning our story sounds like a really simple concept. Well, I lived it, so I should just know it, right? Well, not quite. For the longest time, I could not talk about my mom dying, especially to strangers. I would just leave it out of the conversation. It was too hard, it was too emotional, and it would quite honestly just ruin my day if I was kind of having a already testy day already. But like we learned from Colleen last week, when it comes to grief, which is a big part of most of our stories, the more we talk about it, the more healing comes. Or in my case, the more I talked about it and actually said, well, my mom died when I was 13, the easier it got to share. So I went from avoiding it at all costs because I would cry to having a literal talk show about it. Isn't that pretty cool? God is so good. But that is the power of knowing your story, owning your story, and being able to share your story. So that's what we're here to do tonight, because each and every one of you has a powerful story that needs to be shared. But what does owning our story actually mean? It means knowing where you came from and the battles you've won, maybe lost along the way. It means seeing how much you've grown and giving your past self some grace for not being perfect and giving you a chance to work through some of those lingering hurts. It means being so secure in our past that no one can make us feel bad about it. And lastly, owning our story means being strong enough to share it with others so they can get to know the real us, right? That's important. See how God has worked through our lives and perhaps to relate to parts of our story they also need help with. Your story matters, and none of that good stuff that I just mentioned can happen if we don't first own our story and see its beautiful, rich value. Because I think we always spend so much of our lives comparing our story to others and not feeling like it's that important. So just give me a yes in the comment section. Have you ever felt like your story isn't as significant as someone else's? Maybe you hear my story and you say, "Oh, geez, my mom didn't die when I was 13. Why share my story when Mickey can share hers?" But believe it or not, I have felt that. There have been people who have had way worse childhoods than I have, and I've thought to myself, and I've considered Satan's lie of maybe it's not worth talking about. This person has such a more traumatic story than I am. But I am here today to tell you that every single one of you has a very important story, and I can't wait to be on this journey with you to kind of owning that. So there's a pretty basic formula I want you to remember. First step, you got to know it, then you get to own it, and then you get to share it. I came up with a little motions for it. Think of it going to like a dance move. You have to know it, then you can own it, and then you can share it. Right? If you do any of those out of order, it just doesn't work. So tonight we are going to focus on the first step. And then the next time I am the speaker, which is in about 3 to 4 weeks, we're going to talk about the second two steps, which is going to be owning it and sharing it. So let's start at the basics. How do we begin? The first thing that I want you guys to think about is, as from a metaphor perspective, is a coloring book. It's going to be our job to put the thing on the page. So we got to start with the general outline, just the very big outside lines here, or in other words, the 60,000-foot view. So to start, think of what you would say to somebody you just met at a dinner party who asked, "Hey, tell me how you ended up living in Eden Prairie." Or insert wherever you lived. You'd probably start with the basics. Well, I was born, and so and so, and I went to high school there. Then I went to college, got married, and I kind of moved around a little bit, and plop, here I am. So think of it in that chapter. And if you want to get some pen and paper out to take some notes, this would be a really great time to do that. We first start by kind of just doing these big, general themes. From there, we narrow it a little bit more to kind of drawing the lines in. So we're not adding any color yet. We're just drawing the lines inside this general frame. And at this point, as you look at each of those chapters, kind of ask yourself, okay, what activities was I part in? Who were my best friends at the time? Who meant the most to me at the time? What activities did I do? Maybe what jobs did I have? When did they stop? And I think the biggest part for step 2, which is filling in the lines, is think about what started and stopped. Because when it comes to our story, usually the start and the end are the ones you're going to remember the most, and oftentimes have a lot of emotional charge to them. For some people, maybe they quit their sport because they didn't like it, but for some, maybe it was an injury, and it was a really traumatic injury, and with that injury, they lost a lot of their hopes and dreams. Maybe they've never really processed that. I know I've done this activity. I would never do anything. I would never tell you guys to do anything I don't do myself. And as I was going through it, I was like, geez, I didn't realize softball was as traumatic as it was for me. But I was this athletic I wasn't 6'4" in 5th grade, but I was an athletic build, and I made the A team even though I was the youngest one, and I just happened to fall in between. And yet I rode the bench the entire basically 2 years, and it was really, really hard, and I never really processed that until I did this exercise of which, what started and which stopped, and why did it stop? So that's the second step, is just kind of add some lines to your coloring book. And sadly, that does apply to people both from a friendship standpoint, who whose friendship maybe ended, why did that end? Can you maybe forgive a little bit more? But also death, right? Who passed away at this time? How, as a 7th grader, did you handle that? Just really good questions to ask yourself and just see if there's anything unresolved in there. Leo did such an amazing job at talking about the T chart. So who remembers the T chart? Just a quick, I do, or whatever. But that was all the way back in episode 1, which was back in May here. And the T chart is a great exercise. So if you're interested, go check that out. But this is a really great thing to be able to look back at your T chart, and you're going to see, oh, okay, this happened, this happened, this happened, and it's nice and chronological, and it doesn't have to be just death. Right? We want to make sure we're grieving pets. We want to make sure we're grieving friendships that were lost. We want to make sure we're grieving chapters. This is all part of your story. We're getting it all out on the table today. And if you want any help with that, by all means, head to the website. We got some great resources on there too. Now that we have the outline, so the big general chapters, we've kind of filled in some of the lines. The next step and the final step is adding some color. So think of it like this: lessons, hardship, maybe regrets, things you couldn't get from just looking at the lines. These are the emotions. You can't tell an emotion from, well, okay, I'm going to back up here. Obviously, you can if you're a really good artist, but in general, the color adds a lot of the emotion, lines not as much. So for this very simplistic coloring book mentality, the sky could be black or the sky could be sunny with clouds. You get to decide that, because the lines are not going to tell you that. That's what I'm trying to say with that. If you understand and you're following, let me know in the comments. But so the last step is adding what cannot be seen to the untrained eye, which is the emotions. How did all of those beginning and endings make you feel? Are there any hurts there that are unresolved? And you might be asking yourself, Mickey, I'm happy right now. Why do you do this to me? Why do you make me go back and rehash things I would much rather not? But please, please, please do not skip the coloring in step, because this is perhaps the most important. It is amazing when we ask ourselves, what was tough about this chapter? What regrets do I have? Who hurt me during this time? Maybe on the flip side, are there any actions you did that you need to forgive yourself for? When we ask those questions, we uncover that we probably have some either resentment or guilt built up that we need to forgive. And that is something that, again, no one likes to touch it. In fact, we keep that away with a 10-foot pole. But it's really important to dive into that, because I know, again, through this journey, I felt bad about a comment I made in 7th grade to somebody when I was really stressed out. And of course, to everybody else, they would say, oh, well, your mom was dying and you were in middle school, and everybody has bad days. But I just felt so bad about being just blatantly rude to somebody, and I carried that with me. And I didn't even realize I did until I went back through this exercise. So as silly as something like that sounds, that still adds weight to our soul. And I don't want any of you guys to be carrying around stones. You don't have to, because remember, resentment and guilt don't serve you. God actually calls us to cut them off and let them go. You feeling guilty does not actually solve any problem. If you need to go tell somebody you're sorry, go tell someone you're sorry. But feeling bad doesn't actually solve anything. It doesn't actually help the person who you feel bad about hurting, and vice versa. So you got to let this stuff go. But most of us haven't taken the time to actually ask ourselves, what am I still holding on to? Back to episode 2, I believe we talked about triggers. And that's one, man, you guys, that was the episode that really convicted impacted me. But the theory of triggers, just to quickly summarize that, was if something gets under your skin and something makes you go, oh, odds are that's God's way of telling you you need to work through that because it's not serving you, it's not serving anyone else, and it's quite frankly just not what you need to be carrying around. So as you look back on your coloring book and you filled in all the colors and the ups and the downs and the highs and the lows, if somebody or some instance or some chapter just really gets under your skin, you're like, man, I can't believe my coach didn't play me in this situation. Lean into that because that's probably an area you need to kind of massage out the kinks. I know I've done about 12 instances of kind of pausing and saying, geez, am I really still mad at this person? Is that fair to be mad at somebody from 15 years ago? No, probably not. I need to just let it go. And of course, the flip side is hopefully you get to see the joys and you get to see the cool things. Remind yourself of the answered promises that God had. The time you unexpectedly, won a lottery ticket, or you met the perfect person, you got married, or all those fun things too that you prayed for, and they finally God delivered. It's important to notice those too and remind yourself, we are so blessed. All of us, every single person, this story is going to have a lot of ups and downs, but we are so, so, so blessed. And that is the beauty of this. So to recap, in order to own their story and kind of that whole equation, it's you got to know it, own it, share it. We focused on knowing it today, and it's kind of working from the outside and draw the big chapters, put in the lines, and then add the emotion to it. And then just let it sit for a little while. Again, when I'm back on in a couple weeks, we're going to talk about how to reconcile those hurts. I kind of touched on it a little bit, but that does not do that topic justice because it's really hard to do that stuff. So for now, just get it out on the table. Look at your whole story. Go through it a couple times. Ask, what did I miss? What chapters do I maybe need to add a little bit more to? And it's okay if there's nothing in there, but odds are you're going to start seeing some patterns, and you're going to start seeing maybe some struggles you had back in high school are still hanging on with you. Talk about body image, right? I know I sure have some stuff that I'm still working on, and it can be really powerful to just step back and look at it. We're not talking about owning it. We're not talking about sharing it yet. That'll come, but just take a step back and look at that. And I think you're really, at least I have found that valuable. And of course, through it all, talk to God and make sure, you're asking him, hey, what do you want to point out? What do you want to point out in all of this that I need to work on? Because remember, you guys, your story absolutely matters, and he is not done working in you yet. So as we conclude, remember that you are an amazing individual, and nobody on this planet, no one, even your sister who you grew up hand in hand together and you did all the same stuff, no one has the same story as you, and that's important. All the ups and downs that you have been through actually matter, and all the things that make you smile as you look back really matter too. So know it first. Then we're going to talk a little bit more about how we can own it, and then if we're comfortable, share it in a little while. So that's that. I hope that made sense for you guys. Let me know in the chat feature if that resonated with you at all, or if you have any follow-up questions. I'll be sure to reach back out to you, because this is something I'm so passionate about, because I want you all to know that you are special. And if I could just like hug each one of you now, I would, but with coronavirus, I won't. So, but just know I love each and every one of you so much, and I cannot wait to just keep sharing our stories together. But speaking of sharing our stories, I've got a really cool thing I'm super excited to share with you. Let me pull it up. Hopefully you can see it on your screen here. I know the font is a little bit small, but take a screenshot of it. Coming up on July 26th, mark your calendars, folks, we have a social distancing, and that's really important for you to know. It's a social distancing grief event. This is so important. I cannot wait for it to be. It's going to be at, oops, here we go. One second. It's going to be at my dad's house. So for those of you who know, it's on a lake. It's going to be in the shade. It's going to be outside. It's going to be on Sunday, the 26th from 1 to 4. And it is all about healing. So whether you lost somebody during this COVID pandemic period, and there's been so many people, myself included, who have not had a funeral that should have happened months ago because of all this. So this is going to be an awesome space for those people. But this Grace in Space event is also going to be for those who have lost people years ago, right? We carry those with us. So whether it happened recently or 30 years ago, you are invited to come share. I'm going to be doing some music. We've got some great grief events, and we are going to be going through my Heart Still Remembers book. All this and all the stuff that's included, it's all going to be part of the program. So if you know anyone in the Twin Cities metro area, or who wants to drive a little bit and can make it there, please invite them. If you belong to a church, please ask your pastor if they would be willing to share this. They usually have a good pulse on who's grieving and who could use this. Again, it's going to be social distancing. We're working our butts off to make sure that we are following all guidelines. It's just going to be a really beautiful day. I just feel so called to this, and I've got two awesome co-hosts who are also just really excited to be here. So all of you are invited. Thank you for listening to Grace in Space. And if you are in the on my email list, you will absolutely get a little bit more about that too. As we wrap up, next week, we've got another situational deep dive. So who remembers when my dad came onto the episode? Just give me a love it or liked it, whatever you did in the comments, if you liked that episode. That was what we called a situational deep dive. Whereas tonight, as with most episodes, it's kind of like Leo said, it's more general. It's more applies to everybody. But what I love is that next week we have another situational deep dive coming up, and you are not going to want to be able to miss this. Last one with my dad was such an absolute hit. We are just so honored. So next week we have the amazing and resilient Emily Allison coming onto the show to talk about what it's like to have your spouse receive a scary diagnosis, and then of course continuing to live with the very sick spouse. All questions are very appreciated before the show. This is your chance to be able to ask your honest questions. I know I've got some, and here's the great thing. They're going to be asked anonymously. So she's not going to know who asked them. It's going to be perfect. So if you have any questions that you've always wanted to know, but you're not sure, especially in regards to how can I help these people, please, please, please send them to me before our show next week. It's going to be awesome. And as always, thank you so much for being here tonight. If you haven't yet, be sure to hit that like button and like the page, and share this with a friend who needs to hear it by tagging them in the comments or messaging them this link. Heather was so kind to say it, but I want to just echo that. And I appreciate your very kind words, Heather. I do want to put light out into this world. And I think I'm not the only one who scrolls through the news feeds of Facebook, and sometimes it just feels overwhelmingly dark sometimes. So if you found value in the show and you liked it and you think, man, my friend is going through kind of a hard time, or they're always about improving their mindset, please be sure to share this with them. And if there's anything I can do to help get that into their hands, please let me know. And as always, looking forward to seeing you guys at Grace in Space. So thanks so much for being here, you guys. Each and every one of you are such a blessing to me, and I look forward to getting your questions for our guest next week. Bye, guys.